Today I'm going to beat Pokemon Yellow with only a Heracross, and yes, you heard that correct. I've made a ROM patch that backports Heracross from Generation 2 into Generation 1 so that we can see how this thing would play out in the earlier games. The reason I did this is because during my Gloom premiere, someone suggested that this might be a good candidate for a port back, and I really agreed, so much so that I delayed this week's originally scheduled video in order to produce this one. The reason I find this prospect so interesting is because both the bug and fighting types are not particularly good in Generation 1, but Heracross is sort of a monster. And maybe, just maybe, it can give both of these types a good time for the leaderboard. The reason this thing is so good is because of its stats. It has 80 HP, 125 attack, 75 defense, 40 special attack, 95 special defense, and 85 speed. For the purposes of this video, I had to decide which special stat to take into Generation 1. Either the 40 in its special attack or the 95 in its special defense. When I'm backporting a Pokemon, I'm always trying to design it in a way that I think Game Freak would have, and so I gave Heracross 40 special today because I just don't think that they would have saw a bug fighting type and been like, yeah, that thing needs 95 special. Especially when this thing is going to learn no special moves. To design Heracross's move pool, I looked at two major resources, its Generation 2 and Generation 3 move pools. In Generation 2, it starts with Tackle and Leer. At level 6, it learns Horn Attack. At level 12, it learns Endure. At level 19, it learns Fury Attack. At level 27, learns Counter, 35 Takedown, 44 Reversal, and 54 Mega Horn. So there are three moves that do not exist in Generation 1 here: Endure, Reversal, and Mega Horn. I figured that in Generation 1, they probably would not give Heracross a level up move at level 6. You would be likely to catch this thing a little bit later into the game, and Game Freak didn't really seem to like giving these Pokemon moves before the level they were caught at. As a result, to free up some space in the learn set, I am not going to have Heracross learn a move at level 6 like it does in Generation 2. Instead, I'm just going to move Horn Attack to level 12, keep everything else the same. I'm going to delete Reversal and replace it with Submission, another fighting type attack, which is basically the best fighting type move in Generation 1 that aren't the moves that are exclusive to Hitmonlee like High Jump Kick. Finally, I had to decide what to do with Mega Horn. There were three options available here. Number 1, give it Mega Horn because this move isn't particularly hard to port back into Generation 1. It has no secondary effect, has 120 base power, 85 accuracy, and 10 PP. Number 2, I could give Heracross a Generation 1 bug move like Twin Needle or Pin Missile. Number 3, give it no bug stab and just leave this slot empty. I made a Twitter post and ran a community poll on this, and overall people think that I should backport Mega Horn, so that's what I'm doing for this first playthrough. In these backport videos, I have decided that I think it's fine if I backport one move as long as that move isn't too different from Generation 1 standards. After all, this is really just a new bug move that doesn't have any secondary effects. I would have more issues importing something like Reversal or Endure. They're harder to program and also less Generation 1 like. Now to figure out which TMs and HMs Heracross can learn in Generation 1, I'm going to give it all the standard moves: Toxic, Mimic, Double Team, Reflect, Bide, and Rest. After that, I looked at the Generation 2 TM list, and really the only move I can take from this is Earthquake. However, there is a really great way to figure out which TMs this Pokemon would have learned in Generation 1 if we look at its Generation 3 move tutor list. The reason this is so important is because a lot of the TMs that were removed between Generation 1 and Generation 3 turned into move tutors in the remakes. So for example, looking at this list, we can see that Heracross would have learned Body Slam, Counter, Double Edge, Mimic, Rock Slide, Seismic Toss, Substitute, and Sword Stance. So I'm going to add all of those moves onto its moveset, plus some obvious choices like Takedown and Counter, and with that, we have our Heracross that we can now play through Generation 1 with. By the way, if you want to do a playthrough with this Heracross, there is a ROM patch link in the description. There's also a website that you can use to patch your ROM. I can't provide you with a ROM, unfortunately, so you'll have to find that yourself. The rules for the challenge are the same as all my other solo challenges. They're also in the description, and now let's get into it. Now, unfortunately for Heracross, it has a major drawback, especially in the early game. That is the fact that it is a slow growth rate. This means after fighting most of the wild encounters and defeating the mandatory bug catcher, my Heracross is only level 10. As a result, I only have Tackle and Leer and not enough defense or HP to face Brock. So I'm going to need to level up to level 12, where Heracross learns Horn Attack, in order to have any hope against Brock. I defeat the junior trainer in Brock's gym to get some of this experience. That takes me almost up to level 11, and then I head back to the forest to train up to level 12. Alright, so with Horn Attack on my moveset, I am now ready for the first gym leader. The question here is, with my amazing attack stat, how much damage is Horn Attack going to do on each turn to the Geodude? And I was very unhappy with how little damage this did. Luckily, Heracross has another option. By using Leer, I can lower the Geodude's defense and then do more damage with Horn Attack, knocking it out with only 3 more hits. Still, I'm not sure if just using Horn Attack there would have actually been faster. The optimal play is probably to start setting up Leer at the beginning of the fight. Anyways, for now, I've made it to the Onix. Unfortunately, I have just above half health, and that really doesn't give me confidence because the Onix has extremely high defenses. Also, it sharply lowered my defense with Screech right away, and that means moves like Bind are doing 3 damage per hit to Heracross. So it looks like the little Rhinoceros Beetle is just not putting out enough damage. It gets taken all the way down to 1 hit point. Okay, so maybe if the Onix just uses Bide, I will survive, but unfortunately it chooses Tackle, and that's my first reset. I'm going to try this one more time at level 12 because the pain of leveling up to 13 or 15 is just going to be too great with a slow growth rate. I have a different approach to test anyways. I'm just going to use 2 Leers right away and then use Horn Attack to 3-hit the Geodude, which overall is 1 turn less than it was last time, and that means that I have green health for the Onix. Alright, so now I am going to hope for good luck against this thing. I want to set up Leer, and while I'm doing this, I hope that it is going to choose Bide. And it does. That allows me to take it all the way down to -4 defense before I start using Horn Attack. Now I'm doing about a quarter to it every turn that I attack. It uses Bind, doing a little bit to me, but then it goes for Bide again, and Heracross finishes it off. My Brock split is 9 minutes and 13 seconds, which is honestly not that good, but from here, I expect Heracross to go much faster. However, I don't want to go too fast and be extremely underleveled, so I fight one optional trainer in Mount Moon, the Super Nerd. He gives quite good experience yields. After that, I grab the Dome Fossil and go up against Jesse and James. Now this battle is great for me to illustrate a point, and that's that the Bug type takes super effective damage from Poison type moves. Starting in Generation 2, this was changed. Now honestly, the fact that fighting is not very effective against Poison made me think that maybe Poison would be not very effective against fighting, but that isn't the case, so Heracross is taking super effective damage from these Poison type moves. Luckily, Horn Attack is just doing enough damage, and I'm able to take the victory here. With Jesse and James now blasting off, I'm heading towards Cerulean City at the speed of light. There's always a choice here, which is, do I face Misty or the rival on Nugget Bridge? And I think today, fighting the rival is going to be the better choice. After all, I didn't give Heracross a particularly good special stat. However, this fight presents a problem because the Spearow knows Peck, and this move does 4 times damage to Heracross's typing. However, my speed is 1 point higher than the Spearow's, so I move first, hitting Horn Attack, and it does more than half. Luckily, the Spearow doesn't have good AI yet, so it just goes for Fury Attack, misses, and I finish it on the next turn. From there, the battle is going to get easier. The Sandshrew is next, and it is probably the biggest threat other than the Spearow because it can use Sand Attack. Also, Horn Attack is going to 3-hit it, but luckily for me, it just chooses Scratch twice, and I finish it off. From here, I critical hit the Rattata, knocking it out in a single hit, and then against the Eevee, I take it down with 2 Horn Attacks. Alright, so now I'm going to do a supercut that I normally don't do, which is take out all of the battles on Nugget Bridge. You can tell that I'm fighting these trainers because I've left in the little exclamation mark if it occurs, as well as the dialogue that they say before the battle. I do these edits just so it's convenient for all of you watching at home and you don't have to watch a bunch of boring battles while I just ramble about nonsense that isn't important. However, I am leaving in these battles because I want you to look at my PP. Coming out of all these mandatory battles, you can see that I only have 4 uses of Horn Attack left over. And that's a bit annoying because next I have to face this Hiker, and he has a Machop and a Geodude, which also knows Defense Curl, and this gets very annoying. Because I have no PP left in Horn Attack, I'm gonna have to finish this thing off with Tackle and Fury Attack. And this battle gets so close. Heracross gets taken down to red health, and luckily I choose to use Tackle instead of Fury Attack. It hits, and I finish the Geodude off. With that victory, I gain access to this hidden elixir, and I can use it to replenish my Horn Attack PP and complete the rest of Route 25. Alright, so now it's time to head into Misty's gym. However, once again for Heracross, it has to contend with a Pokemon that knows a flying type move, and of course it is the Pecking Goldeen trainer. In this case, I am really hoping that she doesn't choose Peck. Luckily, the Goldeen goes for Tail Whip, and I finish it off easily. With that victory, I am now ready to face Misty. Comparing speeds here is very important. Heracross has 44 speed, and Misty's Staryu has 38, so I'm going to move first. However, the Starmie has 56, so it is going to be attacking before me every turn. Complicating matters here is the fact that Horn Attack does not one-shot the Staryu, so I take a little bit of damage before the Starmie finally comes out. Now, Misty can use an X-Defend on all of her Pokemon, and she chooses to go for this first turn, which is a bit annoying because now Horn Attack is going to be doing less damage. I think I would have preferred her to attack with Tackle. That seems like the best case scenario. After my attack basically fizzles, doing about a fifth in damage, she goes for Bubble Beam, taking Heracross down to orange health. Okay, so I guess I'm hoping for a critical hit to bypass her stat changes, but in this case I don't get it. Starmie goes for Bubble Beam again, and Heracross faints. Okay, I am not going to attempt that fight again. Let's head outside of Cerulean City and face Rocket Man. His team is the first mandatory battle that has a Psychic type move. This Drowsy knows Confusion. As a fighting type, Psychic type attacks are going to become ever more present throughout the mid-game of Yellow, but I'm really lucky at this stage of the game because the Drowsy isn't really a threat unless it uses Hypnosis. I finish him off, earn the TM for Dig, which unfortunately I have not allowed Heracross to learn. However, just around the corner on the SSN, I can pick up Body Slam and teach this to Heracross right away. After that, just for safety, I pick up the TM for Rest, and then I face the rival. Now with Body Slam, it is time to unleash Heracross's might. I one-shot the Spearow, one-shot the Rattata, two-shot the Sandshrew. This thing has decent defenses. It did use Sand Attack, but that doesn't prevent me from hitting the Eevee. It takes 2 turns to knock out, but luckily I don't miss. And with this battle out of the way, it is time to backtrack to face Misty again. While I haven't leveled up enough to get the speed to move first against the Starmie, the bonus damage from Body Slam one-shots the Staryu now. Then Starmie uses Tackle, which as I thought was the best thing for it to do, it does almost nothing. I take it under half health in a single hit, then it hits with Bubble Beam, and look at how much this does. Okay, that was a critical hit. Luckily, I survived though, and that allows me to hit one more Body Slam, finishing Misty off. Alright, so it's time for the man, the myth, the legend, the trainer that does not deserve an intro. It's Lieutenant Surge. He only has one Pokemon in Yellow. It's this Raichu. He goes for X speed right away, which is just an amazing move because he was already faster than me. I think it would have been absolutely hilarious if my Body Slam paralyzed, cutting the Raichu's speed, but it doesn't. Instead, Raichu just misses Mega Kick. I hit another Body Slam. It survives on a sliver, and this allows Surge to finally connect with Mega Kick, but it doesn't even do half, and with that, I've earned myself the 3rd badge. And with it comes a boost to my defense stat, which is actually going to be useful in the next section of the game. However, not against the Wrapping Lass because I easily just one-shot all of her Pokemon. Next is the Pokemaniac inside of Rock Tunnel. He has a Cubone and a Slowpoke. Someone suggested that he should be called Slowbone, which I find sort of funny. It sounds more like a Pokemon name though, maybe a fusion between Cubone and Slowpoke, so I'm going to keep thinking about names for him. After that, Heracross can spam Body Slam through the Status Condition Junior Trainer, and right here it doesn't feel like it's having any problems in the Rock Tunnel Gauntlet. However, with this battle out of the way, we have to go up against the self-destructing Hiker next. And just look at my current moves. They're all normal type attacks, so despite me being a fighting type Pokemon, I don't really have good options against his team. So let's see how much damage Body Slam is going to do. Alright, it looks like it's actually doing a 3rd. I also paralyzed the Geodude, and then to save PP, I decided to use Horn Attack to finish it off. However, right before I knock it out, it self-destructs. And in Generation 1, the game divides your defense stat by 2 in the damage calculation for this move. It also does it for Explosion. If you want to look at the code for this, you can check it out in the Pokemon Yellow disassembly. It's called Explosion Effect. Anyways, because of how much damage that did, I am really not liking my prospects here. Also, these Geodudes know Rock Throw, which is doing a decent amount of damage to Heracross. By the time the Graveler comes out, I essentially will only win if it does not self-destruct. Okay, it goes for Defense Curl, that's good. Then I paralyze it, however it still moves, and it uses self-destruct. Okay, so that is one reset here. Now if we examine Heracross's move pool, we can see at level 27, only one level away, I am going to learn Counter. So let's try this. And by the way, I am just doing this for illustrative purposes. This is a first playthrough, and I think it's fun to use this move at least once. I don't know if I'm ever going to use it in another circumstance, because in Generation 1, Counter will only pay back damage if the opponent used a normal or a fighting type move. As you can see here, as this Geodude just spams Rock Throw, I am not paying back any damage. So really the only way that Counter can pay back damage is if the Geodude uses Tackle, and when it does that, it does less than Body Slam. So yeah, this move is definitely worse than just trying to knock his Pokemon out. As a result, I take another loss. I tried again just spamming Body Slam, and this time I make it back to the Graveler, but I have even less health. I paralyze it right away, but it still hits Rock Throw and Heracross goes down. Okay, so I'm going to have to do something that I absolutely hate to do, which is teach Rest this early on into the playthrough. Essentially, if I want to keep this move for the champion when it is most useful, I am going to lose a move slot throughout the rest of the playthrough. In this case, the strategy is simple, just constantly use Rest. This gives Heracross enough health to survive any hits that he'll dish out, and as a result, with this strategy, I take a first attempt victory. And now Celadon City is next. Here, I am going to go into the Rocket Hideout because I want to collect one additional rare candy. This is because Heracross has a slow growth rate. Next, in the department store, I head to the roof where I pick up all of the drinks. I give them to this girl, and this gives me access to TM48, which is Rock Slide. After that, I purchase and use 5 proteins, and then I teach Heracross Rock Slide in the place of Fury Attack. The place that's probably best to go next is Erica's gym. There are lots of trainers here which are closely clustered together, and they give decent experience yields, so I'm going to defeat all of them. After that, I am level 30, and now it's time to take on the Grass-type gym leader. In all the Generation 1 games, Erica has good AI. What this means is that Tangela is never going to use any of its Grass-type moves against me. This opens Heracross up to having its speed lowered by Constrict or its time wasted by Bind. Luckily today, neither of these scenarios play out, and I knock it out with 3 hits from Body Slam. Now with Weepinbell, she is going to exclusively spam Acid, and this move actually does surprising damage to Heracross. Remember, in Generation 1 it is super effective. I finish the Weepinbell off, move on to Gloom. Luckily I did not have my defense lowered. Also, despite paralyzing both of her final 2 Pokemon, neither of them fails to move. However, I survive the Acid anyways and finish her off, earning myself the 4th badge. And now, it is time to head into Saffron City to set my dig waypoint to this Poké Center. Next is Pokemon Tower, and the rival battle here. Honestly, he's not that scary anymore. Despite having good AI in this fight, the game has replaced Peck with Mirror Move, which is obviously not as good. Also, I now have Rock Slide, which is a great counter to Flying-type Pokemon. And also, Heracross's beastly attack stat is able to one-shot the rest of his team members, even the Sandshrew. And the momentum just continues against Agatha Jr. because Rock Slide is able to one-shot both of the Ghastlies. At the top of the tower, it's time to take on Jesse and James. I assume that the momentum is just going to continue here. I one-shot the Meowth. Next is Arbok. I don't one-shot it. It uses Glare, paralyzing me, and then I knock it out. Okay, only one Pokemon left. It's the Weezing. It goes for Sludge, doing more than a third to me. My Body Slam doesn't do half. Weezing uses Sludge again. These guys don't have good AI, so they should just use like Tackle or Smog or something on the next turn. But Weezing uses Sludge for a 3rd time in a row, and Heracross faints. Okay, so this early game has been kind of brutal for Heracross. I think what this is showing is that the Bug and Fighting types individually are both not very good in Generation 1, but when you put them together, it like magnifies the awfulness. Bug is weak to Poison, one of the most plentiful types in the mid-game. Fighting is weak to Psychic, one of the most common types for Gym Leaders Pokemon to have, like Koga, Sabrina. Also, the rival in Sylph has a Kadabra. Making matters worse, there are no good Bug or Fighting type moves. Like, yes, I get Mega Horn, but level 54 is far away because I am the slow growth rate. At least I defeat Jesse and James this time, and that does give me access to Sylph. I go straight to the 10th floor so I can pick up the items here, and the last one is TM26, which is Earthquake. This gives Heracross an answer to Poison-type Pokemon. After that, I grab the card key and head down to the 7th floor, where I can pick up TM03, which is Swords Dance. And now I have a moveset problem. Body Slam, Rest, Rock Slide, and Earthquake is my current set, but I need to make room for Swords Dance. Unfortunately for Heracross, it is time to give up Body Slam because Rock Slide and Earthquake together give perfect coverage against everything in the late game. Plus, Rock and Ground moves cover Heracross's weaknesses, and Earthquake is going to do more damage against neutral targets. The only downside to this approach is that sometimes I am going to be missing with Rock Slide when I can't use Earthquake. Throughout the rest of Sylph, I fight some optional trainers, this guy so that I can heal up for free. After that, I take on this Scientist, and then I face the guy who I call the Hypno Sandwich. He has 2 Raticates and a Hypno. I finish off his team, and by fighting him I can take Heracross up to level 35. And now I can do a standard play, which I only do when I'm using a strong Pokemon, and that is to use rare candies to take me up to level 40 before I face the rival. Now he has good AI in this fight, and that means the Sandslash is exclusively going to spam Poison Sting. In Generation 1, you don't take poison damage on turns you knock the opponent out, so if I just set up with Swords Dance here and then sweep, it doesn't even matter if I get poisoned. But today, I don't. Next is Cloyster. I use Rock Slide for super effective damage. Luckily it hits and knocks this defensive beast out. From here, the fight gets a lot easier. Magneton is an easy one-hit. However, I have a speed tie with the Kadabra. I was really hoping that I would move first, and in this case, I do, finishing it off. Obviously, Flareon isn't a threat, so with that, Heracross has defeated the Sylph rival. And now with Earthquake, I can take my revenge against Jesse and James because I have an easy way to defeat their poison types now. I think the best place to go next is into Koga's gym. I really want to get a speed boost before I try to face Sabrina, and I also want to gain access to Surf so I can head to Cinnabar Island. These are both advantages that Koga's badge is going to provide me, so let's take him on. This battle is a little bit tricky to figure out, and I think it's going to be quite random. His Pokemon have a chance to use Toxic because they think that it's super effective against my Bug type, but they also have a chance to use their Psychic type moves because it's super effective against my Fighting type. I am lucky that they will not be using Sleep Powder or Supersonic, so I don't have to worry about status conditions. I think what makes most sense is setting up once with Swords Dance. I take a Psychic, which almost does half, and that was from the first level 44 Venonat. As a result, I think I'm going to need to sweep. Okay, Rock Slide, please one-hit all the Venonats. And in this case, with +2 attack, it is able to pull it off. However, I am not going to be able to outspeed the Venomoth, so it needs to choose Toxic. And in this case, it does. Okay, second question. Will Rock Slide do enough damage? And the answer is yes. So with that, I've earned myself the 5th badge, a boost to my speed, and access to Surf. I can use this to head immediately to Cinnabar Island, where I can collect more vitamins. As you can see, I am not maxed out on my special or my speed, whereas my attack stat is maxed out. Now here I just want to draw attention to the fact that I am using a Super Repel, but in the mansion I can still run into Raticates. Yes, there are level 46 Raticates here, and by the way, they are very fast, so fast that they prevent Heracross from escaping. Now, in Generation 1, when you click Run and it says Can't Escape, you don't actually get to choose a different action. You just waste a turn, which is really frustrating because then this Raticate can use Super Fang or Hyper Fang to do massive damage to you. I never turn off encounters in this location because this is a specific disadvantage of Pokemon that do not have to train very much. Luckily today, I am able to escape from the Raticate and proceed with my playthrough. And I think the next trainer I should face is Blaine. After all, if I'm able to earn his badge, I will then have a special boost for when I face Sabrina. For Blaine, once again, speed stats are really important. All of his Pokemon are faster than Heracross, but now when I use Swords Dance, it triggers the badge boost, and I will be able to get more speed. However, despite Blaine not having good AI, the Ninetales just rolls Flamethrower on the first turn, it does massive damage, and it's enough to knock Heracross out from full health. Okay, so I need this thing not to use Flamethrower, but then it uses Confuse Ray. I hit myself. And now if I'm going to set up Swords Dance, I will be doing more damage to myself in Confusion. Luckily, Heracross snaps out of Confusion. However, one badge boost is not enough to move first against any of Blaine's Pokemon other than the Ninetales. That means I need to use this move twice to outspeed everything, and so I guess I have to do it. But then the Ninetales chooses Flamethrower and finishes Heracross off. Okay, so I can prevent all of this awfulness by using 3 rare candies to take Heracross's speed up to 110. This way I naturally outspeed the Ninetales, and when I get the badge boost, I am now faster than all of Blaine's Pokemon. What this is going to allow me to do is sweep with Earthquake. Also, because I didn't have to set up to like +4 or +6, if I get a critical hit, I am going to be doing a similar amount of damage, and I am likely to still get the KOs. So, I've made it to his Arcanine. This Pokemon is the highest level, and it's also the most physically defensive. Its HP stat is also pretty nice, so I was a bit worried that it was going to survive and retaliate with Flamethrower or Fire Blast, but luckily for me, Earthquake does enough damage, and I earned myself the Volcano badge. Next, I have to face Sabrina. Luckily for me, my speed is enough to move first against the Abra and finish it off in a single hit. Unfortunately though, without setting up Swords Dance, I am not moving first against the Kadabra. It just one-shots Heracross with Psychic. Fine. Okay, so I guess I can chance it and set up Swords Dance on the Abra to boost my speed so that I move first against the Kadabra. I don't really know if this is more consistent because I could have my accuracy lowered. I just got lucky in this case and it missed Flash. However, this still doesn't solve the problem that against the Alakazam, even if I didn't level up, I would not be faster than it. However, Sabrina can just use an X defend. Still, Alakazam has a terrible defense stat, and Earthquake is still able to get the one hit. Okay, so it's time to head back to Viridian City, heal up, and head into Giovanni's gym. In here, I'm going to fight the 2 mandatory trainers, and then on my way backtracking to reset their positions, I'm going to fight this guy so that Heracross levels up to level 48, and this is going to prevent me from leveling up in the middle of the battle against Giovanni. Up first is Dugtrio. This thing is so fast, by the way. I'm going to have to set up Swords Dance twice on it so that I can outspeed Giovanni's entire team. Luckily for me, Bug resists ground-type moves, so they're not doing that much to me, despite Dig getting a critical hit. Now that I'm set up, I'm pretty sure that I'm just going to sweep. I one-shot the Persian, one-shot the Nidoqueen, one-shot the Nidoking, and then Heracross levels up, but I don't need the speed for the Rhydon. I go for Earthquake, it takes it down to red health, Giovanni just uses a guard spec, and with that underwhelming final battle, I have finished the gym challenge. Now you might expect the rival on Route 22 to be a bit tricky because you just have the Flareon team, but I'm way faster than Flareon, and I'm going to one-shot it with Earthquake. The Pokemon I'm actually most worried about is the Kadabra. It has exactly 118 speed, and that is my natural speed with only the regular badge boost. So what I really have to prevent in this battle is a level up before the Kadabra comes out. Or also a miss on the Cloyster. It hits with Aurora Beam, getting a critical hit, taking Heracross all the way down to red health. Luckily, my next Rock Slide hits and I finish it off. Alright, so when I knock the Magneton out, please do not level up. Heracross doesn't because it has a slow growth rate. That is an advantage actually in this case. I finish the Kadabra off with a single hit, and all that's left is Flareon. I easily outspeed, and I take it down. So now, it's time for the Elite Four. Up first is Lorelei. Normally she's quite tricky, but then I realized that her good AI is going to cause the Dugong to usually use Rest. Now her AI is a little bit weird in yellow version. She isn't always going to use Rest with the Dugong specifically, so I figured that it would be best if it put itself to sleep, and then after one Swords Dance I use Rock Slide, but this is enough damage to just knock it out. Okay, I wanted to set up a little bit more than that, but anyways, let's use Rock Slide on the Cloyster. It just barely survives, uses Spike Cannon, doing only chip damage, and I finish it off on the next turn. Okay, so it's time for the Slowbro. This thing can use Psychic, however, on the second turn it is always going to set up. So what I'm going to do is chance it here, use Swords Dance to boost my attack stat. It uses Amnesia, which doesn't do anything. I use Earthquake to knock it out, but it survives. Luckily this is the second turn, so it just goes for Amnesia, and I finish it off on the next turn. For accuracy reasons, I use Earthquake on the Jinx to knock it out, and then it's time for the Lapras. Unfortunately here, I get a critical hit, so I don't knock it out. Lorelei uses a Super Potion though, and this allows me to get one more hit in, finishing it off. I really should have used Earthquake there for the accuracy. Either way, I'm proceeding to the next battle. Yeah, I'm just going to set up here. I think +4 is all I need. And with it, I am able to one-shot all of his team members. Yes, even the Machamp. Okay, so before Agatha, it is critical that I use one rare candy. This is not for damage rounding. The reason that I want this is so that I don't level up in the middle of the battle. After all, her ghosts are very fast and I'm going to need badge boosts to move first against them. I think the worst case scenario in this battle is that the first Gengar paralyzes me with Lick. Luckily it doesn't. I set up one use of Sword Stance. This gives me outspeeds on all of her team members except the final Gengar. I figured that knocking the Gengar out and preventing Lick would be safer, and then complete my setup against the Golbat. Here's what I missed. In yellow version, the Golbat has Wing Attack, which does 4 times damage, and despite this move having 35 base power, the Golbat gets a critical hit, and it does enough to knock Heracross out. Alright, so simply what I need to do is set up twice against the Gengar, and then from here, I am going to be able to sweep. Unfortunately, it confuses me, but I snap out without hitting myself once, knock the Golbat out with Rock Slide, the Haunter's next, I take it down with Earthquake, Arbok also falls to a single Earthquake, and all that's left is the final Gengar. I didn't level up, so I'm faster, I hit Earthquake, and Agatha is no more. And now, it is time to go back to the very beginning of the video and talk about Mega Horn. I put in so much work trying to figure out what the right choice was for this move, and the first time I'm going to have access to it is right before Lance. 2 factors have led to this, the slow growth rate, as well as the fact that Heracross is decently strong. Now because I'm going to use a rare candy here to level up to level 54, let's talk about if Mega Horn is even a good idea. And I don't think it is. It has 85% accuracy, which is less than Rock Slide's 90%. Plus, Earthquake is great against all of the Champions Pokemon, and Rock Slide is better against Lance's flying types. So even when an amazing bug move exists, if you learn it this late, it is just not going to be useful. Now let's face Lance. Here I'm going to set up against the Gyarados. It actually does so much damage with a Hydro Pump. That's pretty scary. Okay, with only +2, maybe Rock Slide will knock it out, and the answer is yes. Next is Dragonair. I go for Earthquake against it and one-shot. Okay, I want to set up just a little bit more with Sword Stance. That's specifically so that I'm going to outspeed the Aerodactyl. I really do not want to get hit by Fly or Wing Attack. And the second Dragonair really drops the ball by missing Hyper Beam twice. Okay, so it's time to sweep. I get a critical hit on the Dragonair, but I finish it on the next turn, with another crit by the way, from Earthquake this time. Next is Aerodactyl. I use Rock Slide, knocking it out, and all that's left is Dragonite. Of course, Rock Slide is super effective, and it does enough. With that, I am ready for the champion. Now, as was the case in the battle against him in Sylph, as well as on Route 22, the Sandslash is only going to use Poison Sting. As a result, I can set up Sword Stance completely for free. I also used one rare candy before this battle, so I know that I am not going to level up during this fight. The only way I think I could potentially lose is if I miss with Rock Slide or get a Gen 1 miss with Earthquake. After all, with full setup, I can outspeed all of his Pokemon. So yeah, let's watch this Rhinoceros Beetle completely sweep. I get to the Executor. I have to use Rock Slide against it because Earthquake is not very effective, but I still get the one hit. Magneton goes down to a single Earthquake. I don't miss Rock Slide on the Cloyster, knocking it out in a single hit. Now, all that's left is Flareon, but before we get there, Heracross does level up. However, it has more than enough speed because Flareon is pretty slow. I hit Earthquake, and with that, I've finished the game. Heracross clocks in with a time of 57 minutes and 34 seconds, with 10 resets at level 57, and this took 3 hours and 32 minutes of game time. Honestly, if my primary metric was the level the Pokemon finished at, Heracross would have performed very well. This is a fantastically low-level finish. However, it had a lot of resets, and its real time is really not that good. So let's see just how much time I'm able to save in a second playthrough. So I go into this one and I'm just like, everything is normal, this is all gonna be fine. And then in the rival battle in the lab, I don't notice something. Yeah, my stats are not perfect. I am not currently in the habit of looking up what the perfect values for all these stats would be. Plus I would have to calculate these ones myself because Heracross doesn't exist in Generation 1. I also could have checked GameHook to see if these DV values were perfect, but I've kind of been lulled into a false sense of security because they have been perfect for all of the runs for the last year at least. I had been using Copilot, which is basically ChatGPT but for coding, to fix some of my old code, which is very, very awful. Turns out it missed one word, and as a result, the program was not automatically setting my DVs. I realized that this was the case just after I beat the champion in this run. So I'm going to put on screen my current DVs. My attack is 12, my defense is 13, and my special is 11. So all of those are above average and quite good. However, my speed is 1, literally the second worst value. And so, of course, I decided to do a third playthrough. And I think that this is going to give us a really interesting comparison. Throughout this next playthrough, I will compare and contrast the differences between having 15 in my speed DV and having 1 in my speed DV. I've always wanted to test this, and now I get to test it, even though I wasn't planning on doing it in this video. By the way, the impact that this is going to have on the playthrough, I think is going to surprise everyone. Okay, so one note how I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to show my third playthrough footage whenever I'm discussing the choices that I made for the routing, and then when I'm showing the footage with the bad speed DV, I'm going to put this label on it so all of you know which footage you're watching. Okay, so one change that I made in the early game is I'm also going to fight the last in Viridian Forest for a little bit more experience. This is going to get me to Brock slightly faster. Okay, so in this battle, I figured out a better way to play it. The minimum number of turns I need to knock the Geodude out is 5. If I set up Leer more than once, then I have the chance of doing less damage if I get a critical hit, so 1 Leer with 4 horn attacks is the best play. I got lucky here because it missed a single tackle, but that doesn't really matter. After that, I want to use only 1 Leer on the Onix, unless it goes for Bide. In that case, I'm just going to spam Leer and then do more damage with horn attack. There's no way for it to chain bind because I'm faster. My speed stat is 30, and that is very important. I take a first attempt victory over Brock's Onix with my perfect DV Heracross. It got a time just under 8 minutes. And now let's check in with the worst Heracross. Well, here, you'll note that my speed is a whole 4 points lower. I honestly didn't think that the change would have this large of an impact in the early game. Also, I'm like 30 seconds slower in this playthrough, but I'm pretty sure it's just that I ran into worse encounters in the forest. In the end, the loss of speed has no impact on this Brock fight. So now let's switch back to the third playthrough. On Route 3, I'm going to defeat the Bug Catcher instead of the Lass. This gives me slightly more experience. And then in Mount Moon, I'm going to defeat 3 trainers. This is very key for experience. So I take care of the Super Nerd, then the Bug Catcher that is just past the rare candy that you pick up, and finally the Lass that is just above him. This gives me the experience so that when I beat Jesse and James, I am halfway through level 17. But this small portion of the experience routing isn't finished yet. When I head to Cerulean City, I'm going to skip the Pokemon Center because I have enough uses of Horn Attack to head straight into the gym and fight the swimmer by the entrance. Normally I just skip this guy, but he actually has really good experience yields, and this levels Heracross up to exactly level 18. Then I pick up the rare candy in this guy's backyard, which I always get, and I can use it and the rare candy from Mount Moon to take Heracross up to level 20. This has a profound impact on the reliability of the rival fight on Nugget Bridge, and it has far-sweeping implications for the rest of the early game. What this does is it takes the Spearow from a guaranteed 2-hit to a 91% chance to 1-hit. Also, it takes the Sandshrew from a guaranteed 3-hit to a guaranteed 2-hit. This way, I minimize the chance that he hits me with Peck and Sand Attack. Now I fight minimum battles until the SS Ann, where I fight the youngster for Body Slam, and then the guy to get rest. And after defeating the rivals team, Heracross is level 25. And if you look at my speed stat, this is perfect. Because then when I go up against Misty, I outspeed both of her Pokemon. The Staryu is a guaranteed 1-hit with Body Slam, and the Starmie is a guaranteed 2-hit with Body Slam. Plus, I move first in the case that she uses an X Defend. This allows my second Body Slam to still do enough damage and polish the Starfish off without taking any hits. Now let's contrast this with the slow Heracross. Here, it only has 52 speed, so it is now 7 behind, and it is not going to move first against the Starmie, which dramatically changes this battle. Now she can get an X Defend before I attack, and that allows the Starmie to survive 1 more hit and attack me twice. While this doesn't lead to a loss, the battle definitely feels less stable. Now we're going to stay with the slow footage for a second. Here, against Surge, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't outspeed him either way. At level 25 though, I have a guaranteed 2-hit with Body Slam. In this case, I just paralyze the Raichu and knock it out with a second hit from Body Slam. However, against the perfect Heracross, the Raichu just goes for Thunderbolt, gets a critical hit, and knocks me out. So in this case, I actually got unlucky here with the perfect Heracross, and lucky with the imperfect Heracross when I faced Misty. So now the perfect Heracross is really going to be facing an uphill battle from here on out. However, not in Rock Tunnel because the rest strategy allows me to get by the self-destructing hiker without any resets. Now, in Celadon City, I'm going to make a major change. I'm going to be using 5 Carbos, and I do this in both playthroughs. By the way, this is how I discovered that my DVs weren't perfect. When I looked at RBY XP Router and I used the 5 Carbos, I was like doing this for very specific reasons to outspeed key Pokemon, and then in the second playthrough I didn't outspeed those Pokemon, and I was just like, what is happening? This is math. It's supposed to work. So yeah, then we reviewed the program. The program was perfect. And then through the process of elimination, Auto figured out that it was my DVs that were in fact incorrect. Okay, so let's head into Erica's gym now. There is an experience routing here where I can cut out some battles. I do not need to fight all of the trainers because I've already used some rare candies and trained on a few additional trainers in Mount Moon. Instead, I can just fight 3 trainers, which are all on the right-hand side of the gym. That brings Heracross to level 30 for the battle against Erica, and here I want to draw your attention to my speed stat after I knock the Tangela out. It could have lowered my speed with Constrict. However, in that case, I would still have enough speed to move first against the Weepinbell and the Gloom. Whereas with bad speed, I would not be able to move first against the Weepinbell and the Gloom. This is actually very important because they both have Acid, which does a lot of damage to Heracross. Still, in both playthroughs, I managed to win on my first attempt here. Okay, we're going to skip ahead to Sylph now. Here, I am only going to fight 1 additional trainer, which is the Hypno Sandwich. He gives Heracross enough experience to level up to level 34, and then I am going to use 5 rare candies to take it all the way up to level 39, which is not a damage rounding threshold, but it's all I need. After all, against the rival, I have free setup with Swords Dance. 1 is the best choice here, by the way. More than 1 setup with Swords Dance does not improve your damage range against the Cloyster, because the only reason you will not knock it out is if you get a critical hit, and in this case I actually do get a critical hit, but I would have also had to not get a good roll with my critical hit to not get the knockout. And then from there, it is an easy sweep. I outspeed all of the Pokemon, notably the Kadabra, because I have 98 speed and it has 84 speed. So this is a very easy battle for the speedy Heracross. And it also is for the one that isn't speedy, but now it's 11 speed points behind. It only has 87 speed, which does allow me to knock the Kadabra out for free. However, the fact that I am trailing so much means that when I face Koga, I have 94 speed. This means that Venomoth is always going to get a hit in. In this case, it hits me, and it could have KO'd because my special is not perfect, but I survive with 4 hit points and knock it out with Rock Slide. It is worth noting, though, that this Heracross does not have a free win over Koga, because obviously if the first Venonat uses Psychic while I set up, then the Venomoth can KO me. And I'm not moving first, so it is always going to get a chance to roll for it. However, with my perfect Heracross, I have 106 speed for this battle. So yeah, I just set up Swords Dance once, it doesn't matter what the first Venonat does, and after that I use Rock Slide. The only way that I can lose here is if Rock Slide misses. That applies to both playthroughs, by the way. And in this case, it actually misses twice, but I still managed to win because I hit the Venomoth when it counts. And with the badge boost from Koga's badge, I now have 119 speed, which is enough to move first against all of Blaine's Pokemon. Thing is, I do need 1 turn of Swords Dance so that I have a guaranteed 1 hit on all of them. Without it, each Pokemon would be a 2-hit. Needless to say, I take an easy victory here because Ninetales did not use Flamethrower. And this speed advantage is very convenient because I can use 1 rare candy before the Sabrina fight to level me up to 44 so that I don't reset my speed with the badge boost. This fight is always going to be kind of inconsistent because the Abra can use Flash, but I think Swords Dance into Earthquake is the more reliable choice. After all, she could just use X-Defend, or Flash could miss. It only has 60% accuracy. This is the worst case scenario because she did hit me with Flash, and I miss on the Kadabra, but luckily neither of her 2 attacking Pokemon do anything, and I take a victory. So the fast Heracross defeated her with a fairly fast time, under 39 minutes. But what about the slow Heracross? Well, here's the thing. At Blaine, I am not even outspeeding the Ninetales yet. I have 105 speed. This means that I have to use 2 rare candies now to get up to 110 speed to just go first against the Ninetales. Now, this doesn't materially impact this fight because once I set up 1 use of Swords Dance, I can just sweep his team and everything's easy. However, I now have less rare candies left over, so I'm not going to be able to plan my experience during the league as well. Also, in this case, Sabrina is worse. I don't want to use a rare candy to level up before this fight, so I'm going to level up after I knock the Kadabra out, and then the Alakazam will move first against me. I could have had my accuracy lowered here because I did set up on the first turn. Luckily I didn't, so I get a victory here. Strangely enough, the slower Heracross does have no resets, but its time is slower, just over 41 minutes. Okay, so Giovanni is really easy. Just set up Swords Dance, sweep him. If the Dugtrio uses Sand Attack or Fissure, you can lose, but I don't with either run in this case. The rival on Route 22 is very easy for my perfect Heracross. I am faster than all of his Pokemon from the very start of the fight, so setting up Swords Dance is just to get the damage ranges I need for like the Execute and the Cloyster. However, with the slow Heracross, that is not the case. The issue here is that I'm speed tied with the Kadabra. However, I am luckily going to level up right before it, giving me 121 speed so that I can move first. Okay, so Lorelai's pretty simple. Both Heracross outspeed all of her Pokemon, so there's no issues here. But that leads us to Agatha, and things are fundamentally different here. With the fast Heracross, I outspeed her first Gengar already. That means I only need one use of Swords Dance to outspeed her entire team. Plus, because of how the experience routes out, I didn't even need to use a rare candy before this fight to not level up mid-battle. As a result, I take a very convincing victory over her on my first attempt. With the slow Heracross, there is a lot more danger here. I have to set up twice with Swords Dance to outspeed all of her Pokemon. I also didn't have to use a rare candy here, but the additional turn of setup is really not nice because it exposes me to confusion tactics. Luckily in this case, that doesn't happen, so I'm still proceeding with no resets in this playthrough. However, here's where things really break down for it, because at Lance, I'm going to need 3 uses of Swords Dance to outspeed Aerodactyl. This allows the Gyarados to finish me off and give me my first reset. This is not the case with the fast Heracross, because I only need 2 uses of Swords Dance to move first against the Aerodactyl, and that gives me a clean sweep on my first attempt. So, I've arrived at the champion. Obviously, we're not using Mega Horn here. I have free setup with Swords Dance and a sweep through his team with both of my Pokemon. Notably, with the fast Heracross, I do have a speed tie with the Alakazam, which is his fastest Pokemon. I don't have that with the slower Heracross, but it doesn't matter because I have a badge boost for the entire fight anyways, until the Flareon, and I don't even need it there. So with max DVs, Heracross clocks in with an awesome time of 47 minutes and 8 seconds, with 1 reset at level 56. This took 3 hours and 6 minutes of game time. And with the absolutely trash DV of 1 in speed, Heracross clocks in with a time of 51 minutes and 9 seconds, with 1 reset at level 56. This took 3 hours and 21 minutes of game time. I was actually very surprised by this. Speed is so important in Yellow version, and playing with the slow Heracross made the mid-game feel like a terrifying gauntlet where resets could come out of anywhere. Whereas when I had a perfect speed stat, I felt nearly invincible. Of course, in this video, I focused exclusively on one stat. I'm sure there are other Pokemon where having a low attack stat or a low special stat would have the same kind of impact on results. Speed was just conveniently the one that the game randomized and gave me a really low stat in, and it is also one of the easiest to understand, because speed is essentially ternary. You either underspeed, speed tie, or outspeed. Whereas with attack, you have a whole damage range and things are much more complicated and under the surface. Now I want to address these backport videos because I am really enjoying doing them, so if you want to see more, please let me know in the comments. Also, comment with the Pokemon that you think I should backport next. Before I close the video out, I want to mention a community race that Vanman is currently hosting. It is a really interesting speedrunning format. It is Pokemon Red and Blue with no items. You can use items to beat the game, like Cut to cut trees, but you won't be able to teach your Pokemon Cut and then use it in battle. I think it is a fantastic format, and I am really looking forward to participating. And if you would like to participate, there is a link to the Discord server in the description. Like, subscribe, and ring the chime echo so you're notified when I post new content. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much. It means the world to me. If you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video. That's just a fake ending. We have to beat Oak. Here, I thought that Heracross was going to have a good time setting up against the Tauros because it has Tail Whip, Leer, and Rage, all which are not very good. And I was right. I get to set up to +6. I get my defense lowered and then hit by Rage, but that does almost nothing. After that, I can one-hit it with Earthquake and move on to the Executor. Okay, Rock Slide, please do not miss. In this case, it doesn't, and next is Arcanine. Of course, Earthquake is going to take care of this thing, and now I have 2 chances for Rock Slide to miss. Also, I leveled up, which resets my speed, but I am still faster than the Charizard. Rock Slide hits, knocking it out, and all that's left is Gyarados. Okay, fingers are crossed. I'm counting on you, Rock Slide. It connects, does massive damage, and with that, Heracross has beat Professor Oak.